talk about the distinctive germination characteristics by family. The first one we're going to deal with is the carrot family, and we're going to be doing two Angelicas, Sinensis and Taiwaniana, and then the Bupleurum for Chai Hu. Angelica seed needs light to germinate. It also needs to be fresh within 60 days. The germination inhibitors are going to kick in when the seeds are more than 60 days old. And what that means is they still will germinate, but it will be long-term and sporadic. So I mentioned yesterday that the Angelica Taiwaniana and Angelica dahurica, which are for Bai Zhi, these two have naturalized on my farm. So the seed flies off the plant, and if we don't collect it, it spreads throughout the field. Then the seeds pop up here and there whenever they will and wherever they will. So this is a terrific adaptation for the plant to be colonizing an ecosystem that it really wants to grow in. And we never know when and where it's going to pop up. It's not a pest. It's fairly easy to remove the seedlings. And actually it's an asset to have the plant naturalized. So remember those two things for the carrot family. The Angelicas in particular need light, so they have to be surface sown without any cover, pressed into the soil. We'll demonstrate that. And for the rest of them, like the Bupleurum or the Chai Hu, we're not going to cover it very much. And there's a technique I'll show you where you can kind of get a partial cover on the seed. Any questions about the carrot family? Like a regular carrot, they have a biennial or a short-term lifespan, many of them. So like a carrot, if you winter over a carrot in the ground, the second year it will send up a seed stalk and go to flower and seed. Okay, the bean or pea family. This is really very, very interesting because this family has evolved very thick seed coats that contain chemicals that actually inhibit germination. And lo and behold, the ancient Taoists figured this out thousands of years ago. And that's why in Taoist tradition, one also always has to soak beans and nuts overnight. And if you know Sally Fallon's cookbook, Nourishing Traditions, how she's really persnickety about soaking seeds and grains. It's because those anti-germination chemicals are irritating to the human digestive tract and they're water soluble. So soaking overnight dissolves those chemicals, then the water can penetrate the seed coat and get in there and the plant will germinate. The thick seed coat means that the seed stays viable for a long time, even as much as a decade or even longer. So that's an advantage with your astragalus seed, that you can use seed sometimes that's 15 and more years old and get it to germinate. Now for that family and for hard seed coats in general, there's a technique called scarification. It's not stratification. Stratification is the variation of temperatures to induce germination. Scarification, think of scar. It's a way of scratching the seed coat in order to enable the water to penetrate. It doesn't mean that you have to gouge the seed coat and get all the way through. It's usually sufficient to simply scratch it, and that will make it water permeable. So we came in here last night and scarified some seeds. Not all of them are bean seeds. And we used a simple technique available to all of you. I have coarse sandpaper here. And We can take our astragalus seed and put a little bit on the sandpaper and then gently rub the two pieces of sandpaper together. And you have to be fairly gentle. But usually that's enough to scratch them a little bit. So these have been soaking overnight, and I'm going to pass this one around. The ones that have fallen to the bottom and swollen, it's worked. The scarification has worked. So those will undoubtedly germinate. I'm going to pass this around.
And the ones at the top are dead.
Probably, yeah. Or it's possible that they weren't scarified.
Oh, so
you could, if you had precious seed, you could fish those out, dry them off, and try it again.
I have a question.
Yes.
What happens in nature to scarified?
Fires. Sometimes
okay.
fire dependent.
Weathering. Some seed could be scarified by the gullets of birds and then pooped out. So going through an animal digestive tract sometimes. Or it's possible that simply soaking, if it's done for a long enough time, that eventually it will just germinate on its own. But of course we human beings are impatient, so we want it to get it to go right away. And that's a way to help it along. For larger seed, and here I'm going to use